Hey guys, welcome to After the Match with Houston Outlaws presented by HEB. Today we invited Jake, Junk, and Pelican to talk about the match last week, but also answer some questions from chat. Let's start with Junk. Junk, we'll start out with something basic. How did everyone feel, but it's mainly you, about the 3-0 against London Spitfire?
I think it was like a really great win. What was it? We thought about, because London plays so differently from the rest of the teams. They play on a rank comp, so we specifically thought about that matchup a lot. And yeah, and when everything went well, especially a when the players played better than we expected, I think it was really great.
Nice. There's also a follow-up question from that by Schneepy, who asked, what were the thoughts behind the Piggy Reinhardt when playing against London? Just BM or actual strat?
We would never be a very nice team. Everything is an actual strat.
Yes.
And we we're also thinking, what we play is what we think is the best given the situation. And I think we played really. We could always play better, but I think us playing on par with Ryan team, I think it kind of showed and proved that
Yeah, yeah.
we're good at the comp as well.
For sure, for sure. Yes, Houston Outlaws is only filled with good boys only. Okay, Toop asked, who is a better singer, Piggy or Pelican? Pelican, what do you think?
Me better.
You better? You
Yes.
better?
Yes.
Okay, I
No
mean,
bias.
it's no bias at all. Just this is just a fact. Pelican is just the better singer. All right, we confirmed it, everyone. And Red Shy Guy asks, what's your favorite change from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2? What do you think, Jake?
I think the ping system, aside from just 5v5 and like the game redesign stuff, I think the ping system is actually really good. It feels like bad going back to Overwatch 1 and not being able to like ping things for your team. I think that's like a really good change that the game just needed, and like kind of adds a lot of clarity to like communication, instead of trying to like describe where somebody is, which can be hard. Then especially with like language barrier stuff, you can just ping it. And for players who don't want to talk on the voice chat and stuff, they can use the ping. So I think it's like a really, really good change the game needs.
Yeah, even at casual levels and professional levels, like I'm pretty sure pros are all like using pings too. So I think it's just like such a great addition all around. And Shadow asks, what moment in a match makes the biggest difference in your mental state during gameplay? 세연아 이거 너가 해볼래? 그러니까 아까 말했던 건데, 그러니까 어떤 상황에서 너가 제일 그 정신적으로 많이 바뀌는지. 막 완전 한타를 졌다 아니면은 우리 완전 뭐 거점 그냥 먹었을 때 어떨 때? 특별한 거 있어?
특별한 거?
정한 프로는
일단
언제나
멘탈 제일 많이 나갈 때는
어.
상대가 못하는데 지면은 그렇게 되고,
아하. 좋을 땐.
좋을 때는 당연히 이길 때.
이길 때?
예.
All right. So yeah. So the question was, what moment in a match makes the biggest difference in your mental state during gameplay? Pelican's answer is like pretty straightforward. He says, when I know the enemy team is bad, but we still lose, then he like mental moves. And and obviously when he feels when his mental changes sort of better is like when they're obviously like when he feels like the team is playing well together. So it's pretty straightforward. And let's see. Puffle asks, ooh, this is a pretty good question. What made you guys want to put Lastro on Lucio? This is a question for Junk.
sure it's good.
Yeah, just a better player.
Yeah, he's just a good player. He can play any hero, and Lucio is one of them. So
Lucio is one of the Overwatch heroes. I think this is like a big thing that we think about Overwatch in general. It's just that it's about being like the better players more so than it's about like the role speciality. I think the idea of people being like you need like a one trick to play a certain hero is like an old idea that came from like the beginning of Overwatch when like
Yes.
you just put like your player who couldn't play FPS games on Lucio, and like they just like press heal and stuff, and it's fine. Because like there were just a lot of those players in the game. Like that's like an old problematic way of thinking that came from there just not being enough good FPS players.
Right.
And there were players who had like really good other skills in the game, like communicating and stuff like that, but they weren't good aimers. So you put them on the hero with like the lowest aim impact.
Mhm.
But then I think over time there were players like across the Overwatch League who were actually good at aiming, who played Lucio, and who also had the other skills, and they just proved that like you can't just be a Lucio player. You have to be like a good player across the board. That like the people who can only play Lucio, it's because they actually just have like serious deficits in their skill in other places. So if you go for one of those players, you're like handicapped. Even when you do play Lucio, it's like they won't really like reach the potential of the hero because they're just like having some limit on their gameplay.
Yeah, and adding on to this, I feel like I mean like I think like you guys can share your experiences too, but let's say for example certain I like, especially when I was on like tier 2 teams like a long time ago, there were people, and when the meta was like shifting so much, there were players who just like basically like they were put in the role, they weren't happy, and they just like their growth just stops, if that makes sense. Like their growth stops in that character because they're just like they just don't want to play. Oh, this is like beneath them. This role is like beneath them, so they won't like put more time to learn and all that stuff. Like another common hero that went through that was Diva. I think when Diva was going through like bunch of changes, there were a lot of like non off tank players who were just like put on there because they didn't have anything else to play. Well, that was like a common thing that I saw. But yes, after Overwatch League was settled, it was like very clear who the Lucios, like the true Lucio players were, and I feel like a lot of like the main supports kind of got exposed over time. And moving on, let's see. Homeboy asks, since y'all are basically the last team besides maybe Atlanta who plays Doom, do you feel you'll need to commit to Dirty Bubble, or you can make it work going into the kickoff clash? What do you think, Jake and Junk?
I mean, I assume by Dirty Ball he's talking about like Zarya comp or Wissa comp, and like I think that those are both good comps, and there's like ways to make it all work. But our view on the meta is that it's not going to be like just one strat the whole time. Like there'll be places for different comps, and most of the teams I think don't play Doomfist because they can't play Doomfist. And even in the end, if it won't be like a one-trick Doomfist meta, like for some weeks we're able to play Doomfist the whole time and never switch. And maybe in the end there'll be more complexity than that. Like I think the other teams, the reason no other teams like gave up playing Doomfist is because they're not good enough at it, and it's like too high skill to work unless your Doom is really really good. So I think for us it'll just be a question of like where we decide to use it and where we don't. But we have the flexibility to play like all the comps in the meta, so I don't see an issue. It's just a matter of like deciding in the end, and also depend on our matchups, like who we're going up against. You know, we can put the comp out that has like the hardest time for the enemy to counter.
Oh, do you want to add to that, or did he like explain that pretty thoroughly?
And we'll make it work.
Yes,
All
we'll
right.
make it work. Pigda asks, push versus 2CP. What are the strengths and weaknesses of these maps? Well, what do you think, Jake?
I mean, I think I have like a vendetta against 2CP. Actually, I just think it's like a bad game mode because I think like it was just not fun to like play a defense where the defenders are really favored. Like you don't want to do that as either side. The attackers are gonna try 10 times and win one of those, and the defenders need to win 10 out of 10 instead of 9 out of 10. Like I think that's just a bad like game design.
Yeah, so you're basically saying like both sides will eventually feel bad. Like
yeah, like no one enjoys that dynamic.
Yeah.
In my mind. Maybe at like in like pro games it wasn't that bad because it's like you kind of understand the dynamic. But I think all the other points in the game that are like universally loathed are the points like trying to like Havana third or something like that, where it's like, or Gibraltar second, places where it's just like really advantage for one side of the map if the setup is a certain way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But 2CP was just like the one where every single map is that way.
It was pretty hard.
So in my opinion, that just made like bad game design. I think push has its own problems. Like I think that coming back is like too hard. If you go down to like a really bad deficit and like like if the enemy team gets like 1 meter from the finish or something, you can just like abandon the game. Like I wish there was a GG button, because it's like the game is over at that point, like really over.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
you can win
Incredible
if the
surrender.
enemy is like a bit past the checkpoint. Maybe that's winnable to come back. But the I haven't seen it in Overwatch League yet where a team gets like right to the end and then the other team has to keep playing for another 5 minutes or whatever. Usually like they just get full capped or they don't, or it's more of a close game.
Right.
But I think there's some problems with like you can't come back easily in push. So I think there's more to be done with the game mode. But I do think that's mostly the Colosseo is like a more flawed map. I think
right.
I think New Queen Street seems like a little bit more like it can go both ways, but Colosseo feels a little bit more extreme, I think, when you go down to a deficit.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's mostly a map problem and they can like continue to adjust the maps to make it less of an issue, or adjust fundamental things with the game mode, like how fast the barricades push and spawn timers and all these little subtle things they can change. But I think overall it's just a better game mode because you don't have to defend a super strong defensive position for 5 minutes. Like that's not fun.
Yeah, I think from like the viewers' perspective, it's I mean, like the Overwatch League has been going on for a bit now, and I feel like viewers are kind of getting like a pretty good idea about how like coming back even from pro play is like so. It's like you the results, you know what's gonna happen, so it's probably like not that fun to watch either. So hopefully we'll be able to make some changes in the future. And okay. Tank Tay plus Pig Heart Believer asks, what's everyone's favorite cookie flavor? Well, okay, my favorite cookie flavor is probably the macadamia nut one. I forget what like the actual name is, but it's like macadamia nut and like white chocolate, I think. What about you? What about you guys? Jake? Yeah. White chocolate macadamia nut.
I think I'll say like either peanut butter or chocolate chip cookies.
Peanut butter. Oh yes. Junk?
I'll eat whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys never ask Junk for food opinions. He's the answer is mostly like yeah, is it edible? Poison. I'll eat it.
My favorite flavor is the not poison flavor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have calories? Yes, I will eat it. 태연이는? 그냥 과자 중에서 뭐 제일 좋아하는 맛 있냐?
쿠키 맛 제일 좋아하는 쿠키 맛.
저 초코.
초코?
Yes.
Classic chocolate chip cookies. All right, let's see. Psycho Rua asks, will Dante play DPS again? Really want to see Dante Pelly DPS duo. What do you think?
You guys can definitely expect Dante to play DPS 100%. It'll all just depend on the meta and how we wanna and everything. Yeah.
I think the viewer base is most of the viewer base has like a pretty good idea now, but the way a lot of Overwatch League teams practice, it's just like it's hard to just like kind of just read the flow and then just swap out, because like a lot of teams are just like practicing like certain maps, right? Like they'll have, at least when I was in Glads, we had like certain maps that I would play and versus like Void would play. And even if despite like how the actual match is going, a lot of times like it's like a little bit, it doesn't really make sense for teams and coaches and players to abandon everything that they've been practicing for this up to this point just because the flow of the game isn't going the way it might seem. So viewers often think like, oh, why are teams making these like seemingly unnecessary like decisions, or like why are they like fielding X player for this map? It a lot of times teams don't have a choice because like they practice this so much. But it's obviously I don't want to like speak on behalf of all Overwatch League teams, but I feel like that is like the meta.
Usually you'd practice and know like who's going to play what map, and it's not really about if a player is playing well or not. That usually you'd only change things if you like were actually had like a revelation about strategy, like, oh crap, we need to play another way that we didn't like, we actually didn't anticipate this. But usually it's like we have some anticipation of what the enemy might play based on like who their best players are, and like we can make an educated guess, or looking at their previous matches, like what they'll play, and then we'll make a decision about our strategy. And then when it comes match day, we're just like executing those plans. And unless like during the match something happened that made you change, like it's not necessarily just losing a map, like you don't just switch your players because you lose a map. I think that'd be like even most fans, I think, be able to realize that's like kind of a terrible way to play. Like, oh, you lost a map, let's just change the strategy after. Like, let's just change the strategy
Yeah.
because we lost the map. It's like if you do that, the odds of you coming back are. It's like a really risky way to try to come back. It's like let's just do something new and untested because we have
Yeah.
no confidence in our original strategy. It's like a pretty
Yeah.
questionable way to try to win a game. So usually
Yeah,
it's
very
about like
desperate.
like you said, Bischu, it's that strategy, like what you practice and what you think is the best strategy is the players you're going to put in the
Exactly.
roster.
Yeah. Angie asked, how do the coaches break down / study past matches? What's the general strategy for identifying key points for improvement? And how do you prioritize these points? Damn, this is like trade secrets, but like what do you think, Jug? Can you answer that?
We there's like replay viewer that's given to the teams that we can take a look at the matches. So we'll see how other teams play, and then mostly since you can kind of tell how all the teams play from there, and so we'll just see what kind of play style looks good, doing what looks good, and we'll just the best combination of what fits our team given the situation, and yeah.
Yes. Yes. Honestly though, the replay viewers, they're very detailed, and you can like pretty much extract a lot of information from other teams that way. So it is like I'm really glad we have that tool handy, and it's like something like really cool that like Overwatch League teams can like have in their disposal to like help with their strategies and things. And last question from Shadow with a W this time. How is everyone feeling going into the match against the Paris Eternal? Yeah. Well, what do you guys think?
We'll try our best.
Jake?
We'll do our best trying to overcome the Paris Eternal.
오케이. 태연아, 이제 우리 다음 주에
네.
파리 상도라는데 어떻게 생각해? 어떤 기분이야?
그냥 뭐 그리 말은 기본이죠 뭐. 상대도 안 돼. 그냥 랭크 하는 정도?
Okay, despite what Junk and Jake said, Pelican said it's just like scrimming. It's like they're basically easy, not even worth his time. It's gonna be an absolute smash.
Did
Very
Pelican say he
different
should
from what
play
the
rank
coaches say.
instead?
Yeah. Better to just play ranked than play Paris. God damn, Pelican. God, I love Pelican. All right, I think. I think that about wraps up all the questions. I love how confident Pelican is. So make sure you guys come and watch us. See how we do against Paris, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
아.
Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you, HEB.